Don't get me started on that.
Hiya, this is Joey Reynolds and Jay Sorensen, who doesn't want to get started on reverse mortgage. Everybody's reverse. The whole record and radio industry is in reverse and
That's
upside
true.
down, right?
Yep.
I hope we
Jay.
can hear you okay, Jay, because I'm calling you. You know, we're trying this. What do they call it? Jiggy Rich or Riggy what? Riggy Moreau? Jerry Rich when they jerry rig something.
Jerry rigged.
I don't know where that comes from.
Rube Goldberg. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's it.
Reference.
All right. So anyway, I got you on Skype or FaceTime or
something like it.
one of them. Yeah. And I hope we can hear you okay. But we want to. This is the only way we can get together anymore. I'm in Florida and you're in New Jersey.
Yes.
And it's pretty interesting how I can make a call to Jersey and not have to pay a toll.
I know.
That's the only toll-free area in Jersey is the air.
Yeah. And by the way, don't give the governor here any ideas.
Yeah, you're right. They'll find a way to tax that. All right, I'm getting the sound up. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. We want to talk about Imus. Now, you know, both of us have experienced Imus, right?
I know, but
I call him the mess in the morning. And you got to do your imitation. Go ahead.
No, wait a minute. No, Charles McCarty with the news and WNBC. No, wait a minute. No. That's all I got.
The 30 years of that?
Yeah, I was just mumbling a lot, not like this. Put that cowboy hat on and I'll be Imus,
Well, now, there's a lot of things have been said about Imus in print and on the air, and nobody asks us what we think.
Well, what I have not liked about the print stuff is this incredible having to put the one thing he said that really tweaked a few people, and that is the emphasis of his whole career, which is, it's like, you putting your shoes on a door and nailing them to the wall and saying, fill these blankers. I mean, that's not your whole career. It's one little minute part of it.
Well, it was a game changer.
Well, that was, yes, it was, no question. But let's get back to Imus, baby.
Yeah. Well, Howard Stern and you and I and Imus and Soupy, we all were personalities together on NBC.
Yeah.
Wolfman earlier. I guess of the personalities, we're the ones that were really the most accented, I would say.
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
And who was Imus? Who was he?
Imus was complicated. Imus was a lovely guy. I remember him sending my wife and I a Christmas present, which was, ironically, because everything's ironic, and a wine bottle filled with chocolates. Just out of nowhere. I mean, I never expected that. And I think part of that was because he was apologizing to me, I believe, for what happened on our show in the afternoon when you were, when we were on from 3 to 7 or 2 to 7, whatever it was. And the day that you played Rats in My Room, your record with Danny Neverth from the early 60s, 63, I guess that was. And we also got a copy of a record that Imus and his brother Fred had recorded around the same time, maybe a little later, but similar to that. Well, we played yours, went into the news, came back out and played Rats in My Room. And the hotline rang. And Chris Doyle, our producer, answered the phone and said, Imus is on the line, he wants to go on the air. And I said, Joey, you want to put Imus on? He goes, well, of course, sure. So we faded the record down that was playing, and we put him on. And may I use explicit language on this, or Joey? I mean, I'm asking your permission.
Yeah.
Okay. Imus got on the air. You said, WNBC, hey, it's Imus in the morning with us. Hey, how you doing, Don? And he goes, Joey, I made more money on that fucking record than you ever made in your fucking career. And then hung up. Now, I had only been there a few months at the time, and I lunged for the electronic dump, the electronic digital
the delay button. Yeah.
delay.
Yeah.
And I literally threw my body across the console to try to stop it. I kept banging on it. Well, we hadn't come out of the delay fully because we were playing music, and it doesn't catch up as easily as with human speech. There are pauses, and then it fills the gaps quickly with speech. But with music, there's so much going on in a song that it doesn't do it very easily. Every suit in the RCA building, which I still call it the RCA building, every suit in that building that wore a tie and a suit came down rushing from whatever floor they were on, rushing down to the studio, putting their noses up against the window and going, what? So it was pretty funny. Now, I thought I had just made it to New York. You had asked me to come join you. I had interviewed with virtually every suit that was in the building to be your, how do I put this, babysitter, sidekick, whatever you want to call it. So I made sure that you showed up at meetings on time and that you didn't say bad words on the radio, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I was told I was hired.
Well, you did
pretty fun.
And a lot of production too. Come on.
Well, yeah. Well, I did the production on it too, and I guess I became sort of known for that. And so what happened was Imus got fined. I guess by the station, probably was in his contract, and he was off the air for a day, and we had to run every 10 minutes, maybe 15, an apology from Don, saying, I'm sorry if I offended anybody, saying the F word, I shouldn't have done that, I'm really sorry, F you. And that's kind of what ran for like a whole day, which was pretty funny. But I thought at that moment my career was over because I was the combo. In combo, you mean I was the guy who was running the console and being able to speak at the same time. Up until that point, not many shows had ever had that happen in the history of NBC radio. You always had an engineer, a NABET engineer, the Broadcasters Union, the electronic union. And so I figured this is done. That's it. But then when he sent that gift to me, I knew it was okay. It was all right. Now, that was a few months later, obviously. And another thing is I would have to stay over at times when either Imus was late, which was, infrequent, but it did happen occasionally, or his engineer, Harry, was late. Harry Tucker, great guy. And I would have to run his board sometimes for a couple hours. And, meanwhile, I had been on overnight by then after Joey and Soupy were gone. So my contract was still open, I guess, and they wanted somebody to do a music show overnight, which was me doing the Time Machine, playing 60s music and with reverb and the whole bit. Anyway, Imus would say to me, roll tape and lose 100 pounds, you fat fuck. It was just, and he said it with a twinkle in his eye. So for me, I didn't get pissed off about it. How could I? There's a guy who was very true to his craft, knew exactly what he wanted to do at all times. And, and Charles McCord was a great guy too, who fed him most of that material. Not all of it, but, a good part of it. And he had a good cast of players, Al Rosenberg and people like that. They're wonderful people. And, we used some of the same people on our afternoon show when we were on WNBC.
So I think you're saying that he's a personality.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt, he was a personality, and he knew it.
Yeah.
And he knew that instinctively he needed to be where regular people were and talk like regular people did. And I think that worked. That just worked.
Well, it worked for him, but you know what? The other side of it was that I had him on the air, as you know, on our show with Casey Kasem. You know that story. Casey was behind Jesse Jackson, and I had been at Casey's house for the launch party for Jesse to run for president. And Carolyn and I went to the party at his house with Gene and Casey and his luminary guests, all the big shots. And everybody made contributions for Jesse Jackson to become president. Whether you liked him or not, you better give a check. So when I got back to New York years later, I was on the air in the afternoon with you, and I had Casey's wife on the air, and Imus heard us and came running in from his office and threw himself on the air. And at the mercy of the court, he did a job on Jesse Jackson. And also on, I think there was a couple of Al Sharptons thrown in there just for good measure. And it was it was a feast of put downs on black people and civil rights as it was interpreted. So after the call was made, and Casey called me, and he says, I will never talk to you again the rest of your life if you ever put my wife near Don Imus, because he is a bigot. And I said, no, he's an entertainer. He says, no, he's a bigot. And then you see shortly thereafter that organization was started, the Coalition for Black People to Be on Radio. And we were, we signed on. There was Rick Dees and Wolfman Jack, Gary Owens, and Casey and myself. We all signed up to help to put black people on the air as disc jockeys and get the business changed, you know, because there was nobody really, there was no one of color. We had Dave Sims.
Chuck Leonard and you know, Roscoe were about the only, you know.
But on our station, we just had Dave Sims, a sports guy, and other than that, we pushed for that. And then years later at ABC, you know, Imus had that thing with the Rutgers, the nappy-haired whores, or whatever he called the girl.
Nappy-headed hose line. Yeah. Which.
And then he got reprimanded. But you know, I worked at WR with Bob Grant when Disney bought WABC. They got rid of him because because he was very racist. They said everybody's mad at something. It seems,
people want to be mad.
Yeah, they want to be mad because maybe we don't have a lot of patience anymore with each other. I don't know the exact psychological reason, but there's a lot of them. What were you going to say?
I think that's caused by a lot of what's on television. You know, if you watch any of the so-called news channels, there is always some kind of tension there that I don't think it ever changes anybody's mind. It just embellishes what they already believe. And, you know, it's hard to change a whole society. And that's what they're trying to do, trying to somehow extract something out of you that you're not ever going to let go of.
Well, you know, the thing is now they never ask us any opinions on all these people. And, you know, there's no one knew any better. I mean, no one knew a lot of these people any better than we did.
Yeah, I mean, because we worked with them every day. Yeah. I mean, I had to, I would, you know, the magic of doing the production that I did behind the scenes was I was even asked to do some for Imus at times because either his engineer wasn't available, he was out sick or something, and they would grab me before we did our show, and I would sit in there and produce some of the stuff that Don needed. And it was masterful how they were able to do that and then insert things later on. In other words, you know, any sound effects, any music was put on afterwards. And I thoroughly enjoyed that process. And I loved doing it with you. And I loved doing it with guys like Bill Sheff, comedian, who ended up writing for Letterman, with Al Rosenberg, with so many other people, you know.
Don't forget Brett. Don't forget Brett.
Brett Butler.
Yeah.
Brett Butler and a lot of other
and Tom Quigley, the writer.
Yes, and we stumbled.
Well, we had a great team. We had a great team, and we almost got fired from the Fractured Christmas Carols, lighting of the tree, when we came out there with our NBC stuff, and they all thought that we were a network, and they came up and queued up to go through a whole rehearsal, and of the lighting of the tree for NBC network television, and we were the guys just on the radio, and they were thinking that we were the big shots, and they queued up. Do you remember that?
Yes, I was wetting my pants in the studio running the console there. I was just amazed at that whole scene.
Well, Liberace.
Well, Liberace was another, you know, you've done a famous, now an infamous thing with Liberace, which probably seems tame by today's standards, but, you know, you said something about his coat. What did you say?
I said, those are great coats. And he says, there's not something I just threw on. I had them in the closet. And I said, you haven't been in the closet for a number of years, remember? But back then, that was a little daring.
He was still in the closet.
Oh, he was? His coffin is in the closet.
Yeah, well, that's true. His hair.
So anyway, we have a lot of, yes, exactly. We have a lot of people who we've brushed and rubbed shoulders with, but nobody ever calls us to be on the air about them.
I don't know.
Because we talk this way, that's why.
Well, yeah, probably because, we talk the truth and we talk what really happened. And, I was there the morning that Imus pretty much lost it. And I mean, that was a few times, but I got off the air at 5:30 in the morning, and he would come in, usually, 20 of, because they ran pre-recorded things for the first half hour usually. And I left the elevator downstairs on the main floor of the RCA building at the NBC studios. And I was getting off the elevator, and I said, "Hey, good morning, Don." And he looked at me like, "Who the F are you? Who are you?" I was like, "What?" And he saw me every day, so he knew who I was, obviously. He reeked of every substance you can imagine. And I knew that was going to be a problem. So when I got on the train or the bus, I forget which I was doing, going home to Jersey, I listened and I was thinking, this isn't going to last long today. And sure enough, Dale Parsons, the program director, came in and kind of, grabbed him and said, "We're going to Florida. We're going to get you help. You got to help because you're going to die."
That was Dale Parsons.
And, again, Dale wrote something in one of the, I read it someplace.
He wrote a good report.
Wrote a very good piece about that. Well, Dale was a good man. Dale is a good man. Dale lives in Hawaii now. Dale ran Light FM after he did NBC, so he has quite a credential. He ran 2 very huge radio stations, and but he had a lot of compassion for Don, and Don willingly went along and said, "Yeah, you're right. I got to get help," and so they went, and that was a changing point for Don. That brought him back to normalcy, I guess. If there's anything that's normal,
brought him back to sobriety.
Yeah,
he died sober. That's what I said on my report. He died sober.
Sure.
That's the best thing that's going. All right, so I guess we've done our eulogy of him, and it's
it's a shame. I'm really ashamed about the way the news media has treated him. I guess it had to be put in the articles about that because that was a major turning point in his career. But to make it like the thing, I don't think that's fair. I just don't think it's fair. I think you have to do the whole body of work. But I guess that's what people make money on because they sell newspapers and they sell ads online. I guess that's what.
Well, I mean, also he was, with due respect, he would do the same thing.
Of course.
I mean, we become a business.
Fair play.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And the only reason why I'm still going on is because I got sober, or I wouldn't be here at all right now. And
Probably
it's by the grace of God that I'm here.
Yep.
So there's or by the grace of the higher power for those who are atheists. I would thank you for being on with me today, and
it's always a pleasure, that. And I've been teasing that we're going to be back soon. Watch this space, and I don't know what space it is. It may be outer space, but we're going to do something in the very near future. I feel it.
Well, we're going to be on the air again, and we are on the air. We're on the Facebook, and also we're on YouTube. This is a good audience. This is the best audience there is.
It's a very loyal audience. And
the other audience is all leftovers. Who wants leftovers? Nobody. All right. Well, thank you, Jay, and I hope you can go back and sit in your bathtub and fill it with water and make your own bubbles, and do like you do every day. That's semi-retirement.
Yeah, really.
And have a bag of Cheetos while you're at it.
And by the way, I made more money on this video than you ever made in your whole fucking career. So shut up.
Goodbye. Oh, it's a Reynolds rap for sure.